Hello and welcome to the Terminalfour and RDW Group webinar on transforming your community college website from an information tool to a recruitment platform. Thank you very much everybody for taking your time today to attend our webinar. Certainly today, myself, Piero Tintori, and also Keith Marshall from RDW Group are going to talk about some very practical things that you can do to actually drive conversion on your community college website. Just as a quick introduction and some housekeeping things I would like to cover first. Firstly, the housekeeping. The webinar will be 1 hour long. We're aiming for about 45 minutes presentation and some demonstrations, and then some questions. Please feel free to ask questions using the questions tool in GoToWebinar. We'll collect those at the end and we will answer those at the very end. What I would suggest though, if there's something that you would like us to, if you'd like us to clarify, based on something that we're talking about right now, please do ask the question. We will keep an eye on the questions that are coming in. So if there's something that we're talking about, we can clarify that at that point in time. Depending on the volume of questions, and some of these webinars that we sometimes get a lot of questions, and sometimes there's a smaller number, but we'll follow up afterwards, and often we will also put those on our Twitter feed as well. So just as a very, very quick overview before we begin, really the topic of today is really touching on the ever-increasing competitiveness within the community college environment. And I think really what's happening across the whole higher education space is the website and other online platforms are really becoming more and more important. We're all aware of that. I mean, we would really have to have been hiding for the last 2 years to really have missed that one. But really what we're going to focus on today is, well, okay, you've got a website, a good website potentially, but how do you really start upping your game? How do you really start increasing conversion? So really three things we're really going to focus on today are firstly, how to align your marketing efforts with your admission results. And I think that's a big challenge for everybody. There seems to be often two different teams within many community colleges, sometimes a team of one in the digital marketing side of things, and that we're going to talk about that. The second thing is some practical conversion advice around measuring conversion. So our view at Terminalfour is very much about getting your website to work harder for you. So Keith's going to talk about some real-time conversion measurement techniques to make sure that you're actually able to measure the success. So how do you know if things are going better than you expected? And the third thing is some very, very tangible conversion improvements you can make to your website that we're seeing from actual projects and some great results and some things that can actually be implemented very, very, very quickly. So hopefully that will actually meet a lot of your needs and you'll get a lot out of it. But just as some very quick introductions, I mean, what makes me, Piero Tintori, and Keith Marshall able to talk about this topic? I am the CEO and founder of Terminalfour. We're a digital marketing and web content management system platform for higher education. I'll talk a little bit, just for a few seconds in a moment, just about some of the projects we've worked on. But higher education is what we love, and we spend all of our time in this area really helping universities and colleges drive their performance of their online platforms. And this is an area that really, I have to say, fascinates me, is how do you bring the e-commerce techniques to that have been used in many other markets and sectors over the years into higher education. Keith, would you like to say hello to everybody?
Hi, Piero. Thanks for the introduction, and happy to be with everybody today. So my name is Keith Marshall. I'm the Director of Digital Performance Marketing with RDW Group. And even though I've been with an agency, and a lot of agencies actually, I consider myself a higher education marketer. I work exclusively with with colleges and universities and community colleges, and been doing so for about 15 years. And really my passion and focus when I work with anyone is focused on enrollment marketing. A lot of the things we're going to be discussing today. And I know a lot of the pains and challenges that that higher education, not just marketers actually, I work with admissions teams quite closely, IT teams quite closely, and faculty as well. So I hear all the concerns from all the different constituencies. But I really focus on helping schools really strategize and deploy their campaign measurements for enrollment impact, and that really is the bottom line. So, and I look forward to sharing with you how we do that today.
Great, thanks Keith, and thanks for joining me today as well. Just a quick introduction. This very much is not a sales type presentation at all. It's very much about sharing best practice that we're seeing internationally and nationally within the US. But basically Terminalfour, hopefully you've heard of us. We're basically a digital marketing and web content management platform. We work with actually well over 180 universities and community colleges, but it's I suppose initially it's about helping people get put order on things, so helping them manage their online channels. But then once they've got that in place, it's really about driving conversion and upping their numbers, whether that's inquiries or applications and so on. That's definitely our focus these days, has been probably less about managing the content on your website, but actually helping your website convert more potential students. Keith, would you like to say something a little bit about RDW?
Sure, thank you. So RDW is a full-service agency. We have offices in Boston and Providence. We specialize in higher education marketing. I think, and as you can see here, a range of different institutions, from community colleges to colleges and universities. I think we've worked with over 30 now since our founding. So we have a specialization here, and a lot of you may have heard, or hopefully have heard, of our interactive division, iFactory, which is based out of Boston. That's a division of ours, but and they've done a lot of great website design and development work. But we're full service, as I mentioned. We do everything from brand strategy, planning, creative development, social media marketing. It really runs the whole gamut, and also conversion measurement, which we'll talk about today.
Great.
So I think, yeah, we want to highlight the current state that you folks may be experiencing.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that we all are really very, very much aware about the challenges in the marketplace at the moment, and I think really, obviously, competition is increasing massively, but I think one of there really are quite a couple of the business challenges and web challenges that are quite important. Keith, would you like to talk a little bit about this? Because I know you've got some really interesting ideas around performance modeling that you're going to talk about as well.
Sure, absolutely. It really all starts with what your goals are, and really merging the goals and efforts of the marketing team with the admissions team. A lot of times I hear from a lot of clients that I work with, and I'll have heart-to-heart conversations with the admissions team where a director will tell me, I almost feel like what the marketing team is doing is completely separate. We're two separate teams, and they have their own data, we have our own data. We're kind of doing and measuring different things, and I always question, what they're doing and how it's impacting our bottom line. And I think over the last 5 years or so, I think we've really developed a great way to help both teams realize that they're really one team, and they're really working toward the same goal. Yes, they have different key performance indicators, which we'll talk about, but the bottom line comes down to we've got to get butts in seats, as I always say, at the end of the day. And so we'll talk about that today, as well as I said, trying to really bridge marketing results and admissions results that may be seemingly unrelated. So, thanks, Piero.
Yeah, so I think one of the big important areas that we look at is not just is not just the web challenges, but actually when you're measuring around this. I mean, we're going to talk about things like today, such as problems around like mobile friendly, students having very, very high expectations in terms of their experience online, and the website not being conversion focused. And it's this last part here that's really important when you're sort of building your performance model. And I think that's something that is really critical. And as we've spoke about a few times already, is that there is this disconnect between the digital marketing people. And I say that as like a group of people, but I'm very aware that in many of the people attending the webinar today, there's a team of one. And also I think the problem is that in the admissions and the recruitment side of a community college, they talk about conversion metrics very, very solidly, but also often that information is not available to people. And I think this is something that's very visible in this performance model here. Keith, do you want to run through this and from your work that you've done before?
Yes, thank you. So this is what you're looking at is obviously for illustrative purposes only, but it represents essentially the traditional marketing funnel that we're all familiar with. But it's on its side, so from left to right, and the right being really the bottom of the funnel, and that's really where we focus all of our attention when we first start developing what really the business model is, and helping clients think about, okay, so really what are our target enrollments for these programs, and as you can see on the far left, but really you could substitute program for courses. If you wanted to really focus on just registrations for courses, that could be the same thing. And you have historical data to help fill in yield and conversion rates from the time that someone starts an application to completing it, as well as the conversion rate of people who inquire, people who call. Roughly, I'm sure roughly 1 out of 5 folks who call tend to complete an application. So you have these historical data points, but really the focus of doing this is it really bridges, as we talked about before, the marketing outputs and the admissions outcomes. And the area I want you to focus on really is the center, which is leads. And leads are really the key performance indicators for, or what will become the key performance indicators for marketing. So this is, leads can come in the form of inquiries through your website. It could be phone calls to the admissions team. It could be application starts or completions or course registrations. It really could be anything that means or matters most to you, as far as we know that when someone engages and completes some type of action, it tends to lead towards enrollment. And this really will serve as the guide for marketing. That really is that bridging of the gap. So the marketing team knows that, yes, click-through rates and clicks on our advertisements, getting folks to the website is great, but what are they doing on the site, and how are they converting? And just a great general rule of thumb or benchmark is the conversion rate there that you see, 1%. So from all the traffic you get to a specific landing page for, say, psychology or criminal justice, you can say roughly 1% of that traffic actually becomes a lead. And those different leads can generate different conversion rates, and we can talk about that later. But really, that's the key thing there, is the leads become KPIs. And the most important thing about this that we really love is that, and I'll leave you with this point for this slide, is that this allows the marketing team to keep pace with your target enrollment goals. They will know that if we're not getting a certain amount of unique visitors or projected leads, that's going to impact your bottom line as far as registrations or enrollment. I can't tell you how many times where, when I've worked with the marketing team and, we don't really know, as we talked about, there's some data gaps between marketing and admissions that can exist. We won't know until a couple months after until a couple months of when the campaign's done. We missed our mark as far as, we got 20 seated for the liberal studies course versus 50 that we wanted. But by that time, it was far too late. There was nothing else marketing could do. They'd already exhausted their budget, and it was past the registration deadline or admissions deadline. So this is critical as far as marketing knowing in real time.
And I think as well, Keith, I think it's quite interesting. We've seen it in a few places in community colleges where, because that information isn't available, they've already started planning the next run of that particular course. So it means that they mightn't be getting great attendance in this particular term, but then they have to run it again because they've already started and they're spending like valuable marketing time and effort to push it when they didn't get a good take up the first time round. And they could sort of almost like, there's always that expression, if you're going to make a mistake, make it quick and fast, So, and I think the earlier you get to have visibility on this, is that you can fix the problem, put more effort into getting people to convert, or you just pull the plug and you cancel a course if you're able to. But try and do that as early as possible.
Which is a great point. I completely agree. So I think we'll look at conversion tracking now. So this helps the real-time piece that we just spoke about. So leads, or those actions, those desired behaviors that happen on your website, um, can be tracked in real time. And the large, vast majority of college universities and community colleges we work with utilize Google Analytics. It has a free version and a paid version. Every institution I know is using the free version pretty much. So this is a great free tool. It's extremely robust and allows you to do conversion tracking. And surprisingly, I would say 9 out of 10 institutions that I first partner up with surprisingly don't have any conversion tracking. So you may want to talk with your team about whether they have this set up. But essentially, the key to this is, we talked about leads and key performance indicators. Those need to be tracked. Those need to have conversion tracking for that real-time data. This is basically Google Analytics, or your web data, your institution's web data, becomes really the key dashboard for your marketing team to know how they're doing in real time. Now, there are 2 other key things here. So, and I have the 3 benefits of tracking listed down there. The other piece is marketing attribution. And as you see to the right, there is a list of different sources that drove traffic to your site, but more importantly, sources that drove conversions. So I can see as a marketer in real time which is driving the most conversions. And we can also import cost data into here to understand what's the cost per lead based on these different tactics. So if I'm a marketer and I know and I see this data, I know that I can cut LinkedIn paid social and shift the budget in real time to some of the other things that are really driving the conversions for this program. And in this case, this is actually a real example for a client that I'm not going to identify, but this is one of their inquiry forms, and they had 390 completions that you see there. And this is the third and final benefit of this. You can actually attribute a dollar value to your leads. So for this particular program, this program was a higher price degree program. It was a master's level program in this scenario. It was $50,000, and we knew that 5.5% of all the leads that came in from this particular conversion turned into an actual enrollment, turned into matriculation. So what we did is you take 5.5% of the $50,000 tuition price, and that comes out to $2,750 per lead, and that's why you see that $1 million figure there. So we generated 390 leads. It was $1 million worth of activity that we could attribute, and that's great for the marketing team to say, hey, not only did we drive leads, but we generated this value, and it's based on a real tangible value. So, with that, unless you have anything to add, I was going to just say we also move to how we can improve conversion on sites.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just 2 quick points. I think definitely I would really emphasize about putting that dollar value. I would say is don't just make up a dollar value. Actually go to your finance people and have them give you a rough dollar value. You can overanalyze it, which will never give you, you could spend a year trying to evaluate, well, what type of course are they trying to apply for. And so there's some really good case studies about this. People like the University of British Columbia in Canada, who what you do is you work with the finance team and say, give me a rough dollar value, and then you can then start using that in your business cases. So it's often, as we all know in higher education, it's very, very difficult to get to make the business case, or sometimes a very long process to make the business case for an investment in your web and online initiatives, even though it's absolutely crystal clear to everybody that it's a good thing to invest in. But it's often hard to put a dollar value on it, and this can really help you with your making your business case. The second thing I would also say is that one of the areas that's forgotten about is your actual admissions process. Put your Google Analytics or your Tag Manager code into the interface of your student applications process. You may get pushback from certain people in IT about whether it's possible or not, but universities and colleges are doing it. People are using like PeopleSoft, people are using like Banner from Ellucian, Colleague. People are putting their Google Analytics tracking code into those applications because you can customize the branding, put them into the HTML, and then using the URLs, you can track not just the conversion, are they starting the applications process, but are they completing it? Have they got to the first form or the first page and just given up? That will give you really, really smart feedback as to where potential blockers could be in the whole applications process.
I'm really glad you brought that up. That's an excellent point. We actually recently did that for a client who just happens to have Salesforce as their CRM, and we did just that. We put Google Analytics code on their throughout their entire application, and as you said, not only can we see them starting it, but we can see where they're getting hung up in the process in certain steps of the application where the admissions team can do some outreach to help prospects who may be getting stuck at certain parts of the application. So it's
Yeah.
incredibly helpful.
So I think I'm going to cover some quick examples here around some very tangible ideas, and then we're going to talk a little bit about improving the call to actions as well. But I suppose really out of today, we wanted to keep it a very, very practical webinar in terms of giving you advice as to what we're seeing with clients has the greatest impact on conversion. And I think a lot of this comes down to the experience from the potential, the prospective student. So from that point of view, one of the huge areas is the course search experience. I think in the community college landscape, it's more course and program orientated than some perhaps liberal arts colleges where it's a much wider experience and almost like you pick where you want to go and then you pick maybe what you potentially might want to major in. And I think that's what we're seeing as being a huge a big difference between the community colleges and the universities. And because of that, it's becoming very, very conversion focused. And it comes down to, a lot of it comes down to the quality of your product information. That's absolutely key. That if you do not have good course or program information, or there is inaccuracies, and there's been some good research to show this. I know Noah Levitz, for example, have shown some interesting results around this, that if the quality of your content and your descriptions, your course is poor, that actually directly reflects to the conversion rates. Obviously, there's a high expectation among students, and then also making sure that there's consistency in your course data. Making sure that in one place on the website or on a mobile site that it looks the same as everywhere else. So from that point of view, I'm going to show you, we've got a sample site that you can actually look at in your own time, and it's the web address, just when it loads up there, is samplesite.terminalfour.com. And this is one I'm going to quickly show you some very practical things that you can do to improve the experience. The first one, in this example here, you can see the lovely picture of our fictitious university. And very much, it's about, one of the things that we're seeing that has a very positive impact is bringing the find a course or the course search facility much higher up in the information architecture. Typically, there's like an admissions button, like you're seeing at the top here. But what we're seeing is that you get a much better return, conversion rate and level of engagement, particularly among community colleges, if you've got a sort of a course search facility. So in this particular case, I'm going to run through an example, and I'm going to link this in with some content targeting and personalization that I've set up here as well. You can see I've got some quick links. It's very basic content here, but I'm going to put in engineering there, and I'm going to say I'm undergraduate, okay? So one thing is, by having a really good, nice search facility here, you can sort of say, well, I can see software engineering. Yeah, I'm interested in software engineering, so a two-year program, and allowing people to maybe look by category and so on. And when you go in here, this is some basic information. This is actually coming from a Lucian banner. And you've got sort of your technical information about the course descriptions. The key thing is it needs to be high quality. You need to have this written well. And one of the things that we're seeing among our clients where they're having a great deal of success is get help from students who are actually studying these courses to write it, because the age group that are perhaps reading this, does it make sense to them? For example, is it written in a really academic way? So where colleges have got interns in from people studying within the college to help them with writing some of the content, they found it to be more successful. We've provided some extra facilities here, like for example, you can save this course, and I'm going to come back to this in a moment. Also having a call to action, either a link to apply or a link to inquire, really important, like often forgotten about. It's sort of like, yeah, here's the course, okay, what next? And then really, try and have engaging examples like who the tutors are, maybe profiles and so on there. Some nice other facilities that you can do here, say for example, if I go into, I have one there, marine science, I can save that course there, and I can then look at and go view saved courses, and it allow me to compare these particular courses so you can see what they're, how they're different. And you can see there, this is actually a handy way for you to quality control your content as well. So you've seen there, okay, great, I've got a course, a course catalog, as most people call it, but I think I can't I can't overemphasize really how important the quality here. A lot of people don't connect this content in to their systems like Banner, PeopleSoft, Colleague, and so on, DegreeWorks. So you end up having inconsistencies among the different channels where you're talking about the courses. So you can play around with this in your, I think there's a couple of courses set up, but one of the things then we're finding to drive conversions, you've obviously got a quality, there's a whole thing around quality there, but one of the things that actually works out really well is then using this information then to personalize the content and target the content for the particular people that are visiting your site. So you remember originally I went in and I was interested in engineering. So you'll see here now in a second, hopefully if it loads up for me, okay. Yeah, it's now actually using some imagery that's much more appropriate. So the course search facility is almost like you're doing research and you're watching over their shoulder and saying, what are you interested in? Tell me what you're interested in, and I can tell you what you should look at or what's really cool that we're doing. And by using this to drive content targeting and personalization, just massively increases the conversion rate. And we're seeing it with some clients that have reached this stage in their projects of anywhere between 18 and 32% increases in conversion to get inquiries, and that is just a huge number. So in practical terms, okay, this is me just changing it image, but for example, if I have said, look, okay, I'm interested in engineering, I've visited lots and lots of engineering sites, but maybe for example you could have a call out for a campus visit to visit our engineering center, or we do rocket research. So with rockets, do you want to come and visit? We have a rocket open day. And it's really a great way to highlight cool things that you're doing relating to the courses that a person is interested in. The other side of that is that really that you end up, say someone has said they're interested in engineering, but you keep talking about other schools and they start thinking, or other areas within the community college. So maybe they're interested in aviation engineering, but you keep talking about the amazing, fine arts courses that you do. And that can be a little bit disconcerting, particularly if you're a community college that has a wide range of courses. And I think that's something to be very aware of. So that's just really to sum up, I would say is product and course information quality is key. Link it back to your course systems or databases. You'll get a really good impact there. The prospective students have an incredibly high level of expectation, and because they have quite a very good online experiences most of the time, that they expect to be able to inquire quickly. They expect not to have to fill in an online inquiry form that has probably more than 5 or 6 fields of information. One recently with a client had 35 pieces of information they needed before they could have inquired, because in their case, the CRM that they were using required that, but we worked with them and we were able to reduce it a lot. And make sure you focus on the call to action. Keith, would you like to talk a little bit more about the call to action and some of the things you can do to actually improve the call to action, let's call it buttons within the web pages?
Sure, absolutely. So really here are 4 best practices, and we give a couple of examples. One which is obviously financial services, Fidelity Investments, and the other is actually Southern New Hampshire University. And really, less is more. We see institutions trying to put a lot of different call to actions on their sites, and if you're testing initially to see which forms of conversion, as we talked about KPIs and leads before, which ones work best, that's fantastic. But eventually, what you want to try to do is narrow down to your one or two best, because they're going to generate the most conversions. If we, you know, we see if we see clients that are, having three or more, what they end up experiencing is a fragmentation between the different calls to action. They kind of drown themselves out, and they can actually hurt conversion. So really just try to narrow it down to one or two best. And Fidelity, I thought, was a great example, because when you look at their site from the screenshot, it becomes pretty evident what they want you to do. And we put, I put a 529 college savings plan because that's a high involvement product, just like selecting my major or course is a high involvement product. And they have, open an account. It's very clear they want me to open an account. And if I prefer, I can. They also include the phone number if I want to just prefer to engage that way as well. So it's good they kind of give an option, but they really just want to drive you to opening an account online. And then with Southern New Hampshire University here, as you can see, they have a couple of examples there. Request info and apply now. But they also, if you notice, on the left-hand side of the page, they have under Contact Us, they have a phone number for admissions as well as an email address. And if you were to click that, it would open up your email client, say in Outlook, that you could send a note to admissions. And really, what we try to do is dissuade clients from doing that, because if someone completes the request information lead form, that goes to the same place. It goes to enroll at snhu.edu. And it allows marketers, more importantly, is to track those conversions in real time. If someone just sends an email direct to enroll at snhu.edu, marketing doesn't know it happened. And admissions, we realize you're incredibly busy. You can't always, track your leads and tell marketing. So it really just eliminates that data gap. And as far as placement, really, the rule of thumb is consistency and prominency. So as long as you can place your calls to action in a prominent place on your pages and in a consistent way across your site, so meaning that if you have a call to action on the home page or specific program pages, they're going to be uniform across, whether I look at business studies or liberal studies or psychology and so on. So they always know that the prospective student always knows where to go to complete that information. Color, try to choose colors that are on the higher end of the color spectrum. This has been proven time and again to work. Red, orange, yellow, and even green work better than blue and purple and some other colors we've seen, believe it or not. So, for example, for Southern New Hampshire University's case, I understand they have a lot of blue across the site as part of their brand strategy. But I'm sure they have complementary colors that they could maybe use to use for their call to action button. And then finally, the treatment of your call to actions. Try to have them as large as possible and be solid blocks. We've seen more recently some ghost buttons, as they call them. They're more just like a button with text on it with a border around it. It's translucent otherwise because it looks beautiful, looks more elegant on an image. But we have seen the actual full color blocks just tend to work better. So those are just some tips to keep in mind.
Yeah, it's really quite an interesting area, and a lot of research is actually happening around these areas. And there's some actually really, really good books as well that you can get on the topic of conversion optimization, and definitely worth checking out. Certainly, like as you said, the colors. Like if, for example, in the New Hampshire College, they should do a test, and it doesn't require a lot of, let's say, big web development work to try and test something out. But with some of the tools out there, even if they're not on our system, you can apply a little bit of JavaScript code, which will allow you to alter the CSS for, say, 50% of your users. And you'll find that actually you'll start getting improvements, and it's all about constant improvement all of the time. But often, I think one of the challenges within a community college or even a university is it's thinking in a conversion way is really important, and it's almost part of your team's culture to see, well, how do I constantly improve, constantly drive the numbers? And I think with those numbers, then you can actually have great success with getting, say, support for budget and improvements in the future as well. I think one of the examples that I talked about there around personalization, I think that I just want to touch on that a little bit more to sort of to explain like what are the personalization strategies that work. A lot of people do sort of geographic personalization. So if you're a community college that focuses very much on a particular region, okay, you can target your content. But if someone's coming from outside the region, would they want to travel there or so on? So just you might want to personalize. You might want to know, for example, if you're a community college, for example, we work with Bunker Hill Community College in Boston, and depending on where someone's coming in Massachusetts, you might want to have different content accordingly. But I would say definitely link your course search in with personalization, because that is where they're telling you what they're interested in. What I would also say is, if you're using email marketing in a mature way, you can set cookies to say, well, they have clicked on this particular campaign. So you can spot when somebody, for example, a good example actually is your alumni community. You send out an alumni email and they come back in and visit the website. You might want to focus the content towards them being a member of your alumni community rather than being somebody that's coming in looking for an undergraduate program or a short course. One of the things that we found actually working quite well is if you can identify the high school feeder schools that are coming into your community college, and you can identify you can use either IP address ranges and what's called an organizational ID or organizational name variable. You can actually spot the people coming in if they have decent internet access from their high school. So this is something that you could do to target particular high schools. But as I said, we're seeing great conversion metrics around this sort of area, because I think a lot of community colleges are coming in from a very, very low base. You can get really fantastic improvements. Really fantastic improvements across the board when it comes to all this. So the other area I wanted to highlight is we've been doing some very good work with the good people at Houston Community College, and I think it's definitely worth taking a look at some of we worked closely with iFactory and RDW Group on this project, but I think to be fair, they've also done a lot of work internally within the community college. And I think actually looking at their course catalog, it probably very nicely summarizes some of the themes that we're talking about today. I think often the course catalog can end up being they tend to be sort of like almost like an output from a database. And I think in their case, the Houston Community College site has really worked because they've really elevated to that to being something that is like almost like a magazine of the courses that they provide. And they've been seeing very interesting swings in traffic, both in terms of how people are interacting with the course catalog, but also from a mobile point of view and the number of people interacting from mobile devices. And Keith, I know this is an area very close to your heart, and I know you've got a few things to talk about here before we finish up and take some questions in a number of minutes.
Sure, thanks, Piero. So really, mobile friendliness, we've heard about it for years, and we've seen a gradual move for a lot of college universities and community colleges to become more mobile friendly. And really, this is just a reminder for any of you who have an interest in this. There are really more reasons now than ever to move to become a mobile-friendly website for your institution. Number one, we're seeing an increase every year with prospective students who are looking for courses or looking for programs first on their smartphone or on their mobile device. We're seeing the numbers inch up every year. I mean, right now, I think for one of my clients, it's as high as 50% of all the traffic coming to their sites from mobile. It is the first key impression for your institution. Interestingly, what we see is the second impression, or what they tend to do. Prospects tend to not convert when they are on their smartphone device. They do their initial research on their smartphone device, but what they do is they prefer to come back on their laptop or their desktop and actually convert that way. And what we've determined is that they just prefer to fill out an inquiry form or application just using a keyboard rather than a digital keyboard on their phone. And we can see that behavior in the web data of prospects. We can see that returning traffic. So really, key first impression. And here's an example of a screenshot I took for a local community college, the Community College of Rhode Island. And not to pick on them, but this is an experience we see still across many different schools. And and really just makes it harder to explore and research and ultimately to convert it. So keep that in mind. And number two, this is the number two reason, your institution, if it doesn't have a mobile-friendly site, it's actually being punished since April of last year. So Google, for search results, a lot of our prospects are coming in from search behaviors. Google is actually punishing sites in the search results if their site isn't mobile-friendly. So if you have a competitor institution, community college, or other schools that have mobile-friendly, their results are going to come up higher in mobile searches than your institution. And as soon as we see community colleges or other institutions convert over to having a mobile-friendly site, the change is almost automatic. I mean, it may take a month or so for Google's algorithm to update and see, okay, you know, the site is optimized and has a great mobile user experience now. You know, we're going to basically let the results resume to where they were before, or even better. So that's a second reason to do it. And you know, the impact, as we state here, it really, a poor user experience or poor mobile SEO means less traffic and potentially less conversions, which means less recruitment. So just to keep those things in mind, we really have more reasons than ever. And as far as going to mobile friendliness, we've all heard, or most of us have heard, of responsive design. And we tend to love this for many different reasons. And this, in the particular screenshots you're looking at, this student is not getting arrested, by the way. He's actually doing a ride-along with law enforcement. He's a criminal justice student at North Arkansas College. And this was a site that iFactory, our interactive division, did for North Arkansas. And you could see the different experiences on desktop versus tablet below that versus mobile. And really what it offers is just a unified, consolidated design, no more need for desktop and mobile, separate mobile sites, which pose their own challenges as far as duplicating content and having an experience that's pretty equivalent to the desktop version. It can offer equal, if not better, UX overall, and improves SEO for mobile search. So a lot of reasons to move to responsive design. Do you have anything to add there, Piero? If not, I think
I think
we're
yeah, no,
close.
yeah, I think everything you said there. I mean, it's like everyone's talking about mobile friendliness at the moment, and I think, I think really sometimes I think you'd have to be strict with yourselves when it comes to the content on the mobile platform, like on a smartphone or a tablet. I think sometimes even with responsive, people just try and use that to squash all of their content into a smaller space. So I think you have to be very, 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 very strict to be able. You have to be very, very strict with yourself to say, okay, I am on a mobile device. What really do I want? Because it mightn't necessarily be the whole thing just condensed into something that looks pretty on a smartphone. I think one thing that's quite interesting as well is particularly people on Android devices where they're using Chrome to synchronize their web traffic, is that's where you can really see the people doing their initial research on their smartphone devices, but actually then converting on a normal browser, because it will keep the cookies and it will synchronize the cookies between their different devices, between their laptop and their Android smartphone. That's where you actually start to see people doing sort of funny things like that, which is also a trend that happens in certain retail situations outside higher education, particularly in online e-commerce stores where it's not where there is a large volume of potential products that you could purchase rather than you're going there for a single purchase. But look, I hope today, at least with we've given you some good practical advice and ideas of things to do. Just as a quick conclusion, I know there's been a few questions there coming in, and we'll deal with those and come to those in a few minutes. I suppose just in conclusion, look, that at the start of this webinar today, we really wanted to make sure that we kept it very practical. And I think we can't emphasize enough how the first thing you need to do is connect up the marketing efforts with your admissions results. And it really means is that if you're the person in charge of digital marketing efforts, or maybe that belongs across the whole of your college, is that you really have a clear view from the start of the funnel. So from somebody being a stealth applicant or stealth visitor to your website through to being an accepted student, that you really have very clear visibility. Because as we spoke about, by having visibility of that data, then you are able to make much better choices about what you spend your time and efforts on. And look, we're very, very, we all know how limited how limited we are with resources in community colleges and for a lot of universities. And you really need to have data to help you drive where you're putting the time and efforts where you're putting your time and effort into all of this. The second part is really make sure you've set up the conversion tools in Google Analytics. It won't cost you anything, but what it will allow you to do is get some very good uh, ammunition when it comes to making your budget cases. If you can show increases in conversion and you have a monetary amount behind all of this, that is where it can really help you a lot with making that business case. And we've seen clients starting to do it, and it makes things less intangible. And accountants and budget people tend to like talking numbers, and they like to see return on investment. And up to now, it's quite difficult to show the return on investment on the website. So by having this data, you have that data and make good decisions around it. And then really the third part is there's so many quick things you can do. I mean, some of this is based on our own platform, but without our platform, although obviously it's the best platform in the world, there are tools to help you do some of this sort of stuff. Personalization, quick tools, analytic tools to help you improve things. And those little sort of quick adjustments to like improving your call to actions, like you don't have your call to action button the same color as the rest of your website, using some basic content targeting. That can really actually improve it. It's a good way to do some quick experiments, and then from there you can actually do some very, very smart things around that as well. So before, I hope that's given you some very practical ideas that you can take away. What I want to do is myself and Keith are going to take some questions, and I know there's about 4 questions there that we can that are online, and we'll definitely come to these, and maybe we'll split them between myself and Keith. So the first question was about the No Levitz report that the No Levitz report that's available. So the No Levitz report is it's what's called the E-expectations report, and it's if you quickly Google that, I don't have the. I think No Levitz now renamed. Have been. I think they've merged with Ruffalo. I think it's now called Ruffalo No Levitz. So if you do a search for E-expectations research reports, you'll see that there's and you can put in a year, so you can like even put 2015. You'll see the latest results. They often go around to a lot of conferences and they'll talk through the results of their survey. But the trend really is that people are potential students are really have a high level of expectations, and they will punish you if your website's poor. And I think you just have to think about it yourselves. If you're going to an online retailer and their product descriptions are poor, the photography is poor, there's little inaccuracies, it may be the same product as elsewhere, but there's a certain line where you'll sort of think, well, actually, what, I'm just going to go with Amazon because I know it's going to deliver, and yeah, it might be $10 cheaper somewhere else, but you know what, I'm not sure it's going to ever deliver, and it's going to be a pain for me to try and find where it's gone missing, and so on as well. The One of the next questions here, and I think this is probably one for you, Keith. I'll read it out here. Since you mentioned tracking student inquiries by high school, but since they're accessing our info from their phones, how we track that? Maybe that's one we can answer that perhaps together. It can be a little tricky, can't it? I think when it comes to like mobile devices and then linking through that to somebody from their browser in their high school. The only way, Keith, I can think about it would be if they inquire and they inquire with their email address, that you could track it that way. But you're right. Do you have any views on that, or approaches to how you could, obviously if they're in a high school but they're on a smartphone, it's probably a tricky
Yeah,
one.
Yeah, that's extremely tricky one, and there's a whole lot of privacy issues around being able to track whether someone is in high school. Most, if not all of those listening, I assume have Google Analytics, and the only thing Google Analytics will allow you from a demographic perspective to understand is the age. So age may give you a decent gauge, but even that is limited. And then male, female. Beyond that, I mean, I've had questions of can we identify the ethnicity of this doesn't exist unless, to Piero's point, unless you give them a reason to opt in. So for one example, there is an institution that really wanted to just focus on a campaign targeting students, that were underrepresented minorities. And what we had to do with the site is really customize the landing page experience and content where we were driving our advertising to really and to offer a call to action that incentivize the student for sharing that information to self-identify. Yes, I am an African American student. I am a junior or senior in high school, and I am interested in your institution. But we demonstrated value with that by having them basically having the form say, we have a commitment to increasing the diversity of our institution, and if you are a high school student that's seriously considering our institution, we encourage you to share some information with us, and what we'll do is we'll basically keep in contact with you via email and phone occasionally to let you know about special scholarships and other opportunities that are geared just for you. So as long as you spell that value up front, the student or his or her parent will share that information. But until you get that information, really, you can't track age for high school or demographics like as far as ethnicity. Again, there were a lot of privacy issues. Google's getting sued all the time for privacy issues, so they would never try to even track that information.
Yeah.
But I think that's the style. And there's a lot of challenges still with mobile. I'll be honest. If I were to log onto your website from a mobile device, it won't. The pinpointing or the triangulation of where I physically am, because we can get location data, but for mobile it's a challenge because it tends to route to where, not to get too technical, but it tends to route where I'm getting my Wi-Fi or my signal from. It'll get me to where it's. So in other words, I could go on your site, and even though I am actually out of our Providence office, it might show me coming out of New York because I use AT&T, and that's where my service is coming out of. So there's still a lot of improvements that need to be done from a mobile tracking perspective, but there are other data we do and can get.
Yeah, I think the big challenge is trying to as well when you're asking people for information, like with that client where they had 30-something fields of information, that was directly impacting the completion rates
Yes.
of their forms. And I think you just have to be a little bit careful, particularly if you're crossing a line where it sounds a little bit freaky as to why you might be, we all know why ethnicity is important in terms of scholarships and things like that, but certain questions can be a little bit strange, and I think you've just to be very, very cautious that everybody is so, certainly the age group of people researching colleges, they should be um, very conscious of their online privacy. So you just try, I would at least get their basic inquiry information and then build from there. I think this actually is an interesting subsequent question, and what are some of the most valuable leads to track in Google Analytics? And for me, the two that jump out is you want people to inquire about a course. You want people to maybe register for a campus or a college visit, and then probably the applications process. Can you think of any, Keith, off the top of your head beyond those three that would be I think to me those three are the things that are the three that if you were to put a super amount of time into, that's what you would focus on, right?
Yeah, I would say those are the three, and I would say if there's another call to action that I've worked with for institutions, but they're not necessarily for community colleges, and they're for graduate level programs, and I'll just share it because it's an interesting case study, and that's taking a pre-assessment. So the application process for graduate programs can be pretty cumbersome and intimidating for a lot of prospects. So what we did was to eliminate that barrier. We created this check your eligibility call to action, and what that did is it promised if you share some basic information about yourself and you upload your resume or your LinkedIn profile with us, we'll get in touch with you within 5 to 7 business days to let you know whether you meet the minimum eligibility requirements to even apply for this program. And what that did, it did two things. Number one, it demonstrated value for the prospect, because if I'm a prospect, you mean to tell me that I don't have to waste all this time getting letters of recommendation, completing the application, getting essays written, all this stuff. You can tell me up front in 5 to 7 business days where I should even bother applying. That was huge value for the prospect. For the marketing and admissions teams, what that did is increase conversion by 400%. So, for example, a normal inquiry form could generate anywhere between, I'll be honest, it could be as low as 0.25% up to 1% if it's done right. This particular call to action generated a 5% conversion rate. So it can be done. If you can be creative and you can demonstrate value to your prospect, I would say, Piero talked before about testing different call to actions, and in this case, testing different call to action forms, and demonstrate the value when someone is inquiring. Demonstrate on that form, what am I going to get out of sharing my information with you? We're all savvy e-shoppers now. We know that when we share an email address, we're going to get bombarded with stuff, or at least that's the assumption. If you can demonstrate a reason why I should share my basic information with you, that you're not going to hound me to enroll, but you're going to share information that really helps me identify whether this is the best course for me, this is the best major for me to help me with my career goals, I will share my information with you. And I think that's the key. Try to find a way to demonstrate value in that form to increase your conversion rates.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely key. And I think if you just even focus on those, couple there that we mentioned, I think you'll start seeing good results. And I think it's not overwhelming to try and really optimize those forms. Like we even found on our own website that we reduced the number of fields that we had people fill in, and like conversion improved. And I think there's just so many little quick wins that you can do. I would say there's also another question that links in with this, into the quick wins in terms of testing that you can do on the website. I would definitely say that one of the biggest ones is like the conversion, the button, the color of the button that you use for somebody to sign up for, say, to inquire or to start a call to action. I'd say that, and the text that you use on it, just test it. I think you'll find just by changing it, changing colors, like just run a test first. Like don't even ask permission, just run it, and you'll see that I think you'll get improvements in conversion. I think that's definitely some of the biggest quick wins that you can that you can implement that have such a great return. It's
I will. Here, I'll add something to what you shared, because I hear this all the time as a debate in a marketing department. This is just a classic example. You land on a program page, and so we talked about call to action buttons. Even the image at the top of the page has been a source of contention for some of my clients. Some people say, well, we should use this image, and others say, well, we should use this image. Well, what Piero and I are basically saying is, with some simple JavaScript code, some simple implementation, you can actually live test both images and see which one wins. Let the consumer decide which page, it'll be automatically served up in an A/B test, and over time the winner will be decided. And you can basically go back to your source and say, hey, guess what? This image, believe it or not, this was the one variable we changed, actually just happened to lead to a statistical difference as far as conversions. So eliminate those internal battles and try testing.
Yeah, I think I think that that point there about eliminating internal battles, it's so prevalent in higher education that it's, data is the best way to drive decisions. And if you can prove that, well, hang on, that image with that call out had a much better response, it's you avoid the argument.
Right.
It's not about, oh well, it's people's opinions no longer need to be the drivers of decisions. It can be actual data. But on that note, I would like to thank everybody for attending today's webinar. We hope that it's been very, very practical and helpful for you. Just the last point I'd just like to share with you is that we have a number of ways of keeping in touch with us, but the one area that I think that a lot of our university and community college clients get a lot out of is our blog at terminalfour.com/blog. On that, it's not a commercial blog. We have lots of topics around everything around digital marketing, around higher education. It's followed. We get about, I think it's 1,300 universities have visited in the last year and follow us on it, different universities. But But what we're also really interested in is your success stories or examples of good things that you've seen, good practice, and we're really happy to show those off to the community out there. Also available on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. And I'd just like to thank everyone attending, but also Keith, thank you very much for joining me today. And I hope
My
everybody
pleasure.
thank you, and I hope everybody has really got a lot out of it. But if you have any other questions you'd like to follow up with us offline after this webinar, please contact us and we're happy to answer any questions. We will subsequently be sending a link with the recording of this webinar if you want to send it around to the rest of your team or to other people around your organization. You're very welcome to do that. And again, thank you for attending, and please keep in touch with us on Twitter and we will let you know when we are running further webinars in the near future. Thank you very much and hope you join us again very soon. Bye.